It's been over 20 years since the first Pokemon games released, and my first exposure to the franchise would be the anime airing at the time. I never owned a Game Boy or any handheld for that matter, so my experience of the games back then would be just a few hours of Pokemon Red that I played after borrowing it from a friend, desperately trying to recreate the feeling the show gave me. But I was disappointed that Pikachu couldn't be my first Pokemon, and that I couldn't have Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur in my party at the same time without trading with others. This, however, is where Pokemon Yellow would step in a couple of years later. The game that would more closely follow the characters and events of the show, which would be enough to get me to play through the whole thing and end up getting me hooked onto the franchise. So it seems only fitting that the first Pokemon review I end up doing would be for a remake of the title that started it all for me. When Pokemon Let's Go was revealed, I had some doubts about the direction of this game. Aspects that I loved of the past entries seemed like they were getting overly simplified or removed altogether, and while some of that does hold true, that is not necessarily a bad thing. The biggest change present is that there are no random encounters anymore. All Pokemon can be seen on the screen and can be avoided if desired. The next change directly relating to this is you no longer engage wild Pokemon in battle, and now the catching aspect is similar to Pokemon Go. The timing of the throw, the type of Pokeball you're using, the size of the Pokemon, and where you land the throw are all factors into whether the attempt will be successful and how much XP you'll get out of it. XP is shared amongst the entire party, and this aspect cannot be disabled. Some Pokemon may be more difficult to capture, so you may need to give them food to prevent them from fleeing. Others may hop around, requiring you to aim your throws more carefully. Handheld mode gives you the option to aim using the joystick and pressing A to throw, while in all other modes the throw is done via motion controls, which brings forth one of my main issues with the game. There is no Pro Controller support at all. The handheld mode already shows that motion controls are not required, but the game itself only uses one Joy-Con or a one-handed Pokeball Plus as a control option, which honestly caused my hand to cramp on more than one occasion. But that wasn't the only issue I had with this. The motion controls are not accurate all the time. The same exact motion can sometimes result in the Pokeball landing short or being thrown way off to the side with no rhyme or reason. And with XP multipliers being dependent on how well your throw was and how quickly you caught the Pokemon, it can get a bit frustrating when out of nowhere the same motion you've been doing for the last 15 attempts randomly makes the Pokeball go flying way off to the side. Some may be concerned that emphasis on battling is reduced due to wild Pokemon encounters no longer being battles, but there are still plenty of trainers to be fought. However, unlike previous games, battling trainers actually gives you less XP than wild Pokemon encounters. And most trainer battles, aside from just giving you money to spend like in the past games, also give you Pokeballs as well. Add in systems like catch combos, which encourage you to capture the same kind of Pokemon over and over again, or the ability to send Pokemon to Professor Oak to obtain candies in return that can power up your Pokemon stats. This game is definitely encouraging people to catch Pokemon more so than the past entries. Going back to battling, aspects have been simplified over past games a bit. You can no longer allow your Pokemon to hold items for use inside battle, and you may not be able to initiate gym battles unless you meet certain requirements. Usually it's level based, but it can also be something along the lines of needing to catch a certain number of unique Pokemon. Mega evolutions from Pokemon X and Y make a return pretty late in the game. And in the post-game, some really tough battles await folks looking for a more challenging time in the form of Master Trainer battles. These are trainers who specialize in a specific Pokemon which you have to battle using the same one, and you're not able to use items during this fight. This entry also brings over some of the conveniences from the past generations, like unlimited uses for TM special moves, and no longer requiring HM moves at all, which would take up precious move slots in the past. It also makes strides in bringing in new improvements of its own, like having your Pokemon box accessible at all times, or being able to rename your Pokemon whenever you want. You also get the ability to let one Pokemon out of their Pokeball to come along with you, after which they will either travel slightly behind you or in some cases result in you being able to mount them and traverse the area if there's enough space. This can also be faster than walking depending on the Pokemon. Though despite many improvements from past games making their way in, oddly the Pokemon Center and the Pokemart are once again separate. Perhaps this was done to stay true to the original town layouts, I'm not sure. Aside from that, in regards to the rest of the game, there are minor changes done to the story. You are not playing as the same characters as the original Pokemon Yellow, but some of them do make an appearance, and for the most part, you are following a similar story and event progression as well. Only this time around, with new and improved visuals and a better sense of scale as well. And for those who are wondering whether it's possible to catch them all or not, this leads us to the next section of the review. Just like how the series started, this is an entry that is launching with 2 versions of the game at the same time, each with a certain number of exclusive Pokemon that you cannot catch in the other. The big difference this time around is this game also connects to Pokemon Go. So if you happen to have caught Pokemon that are not available in this specific version of Let's Go, you can bring them over from Pokemon Go itself without the need for another player or buying another version. If you don't, then you will need to either trade locally with a nearby player or online, which requires a subscription to Nintendo's service. However, even with this, there is one Pokemon that simply cannot be traded in from Pokemon Go. Mew, which is only obtainable by buying the $50 accessory. And this kind of tactic does not sit well with me at all, and also ends up affecting my overall impression of the game. In the end, this is a solid entry into the franchise that regulars may not be entirely into due to certain changes that were made and due to it being yet another Gen 1 remake. But it is a terrific entry point for newcomers and a great way for people looking to revisit Kanto again with new and improved visuals and quality of life improvements. And while it may not have the most intriguing of stories and is marred by a few flaws like the decision to not include any Pro Controller support and locking a Pokemon exclusively behind a $50 accessory, there's still a good time to be had with the game when all said and done.